Hello, my friends. I am the Dungeon Tutor. Welcome. Today, we are following along on RPGaDay. Being the 15th day, almost halfway through, we have a topic, which is... it's a good one. What's your favorite convention, module, or one-shot? Now, not everybody runs games at conventions, so the one-shot thing is probably as appropriate as any. But I never did one-shots all that much until fairly recently, and even my one-shots aren't a one-night affair for the most part. They're usually a short story arc of 3 sessions, maybe even 4 sessions. But a one-shot is generally designed to be over and done in the span of a reasonable amount of gaming at a convention. That's usually about 4 hours. They can go longer, they can be shorter, but mine usually go 4 hours. That gives you enough time to get some empathy with the character, to want to play them and see them succeed, to care about the world that they're in, and maybe to show off some elements of a game that I want to illustrate. So 4 hours is a pretty reasonable amount of time. So that's what I shoot for in cons, and as far as a one-shot goes, yeah, that's generally about the time I fill. Usually from about 6 o'clock to 10 o'clock is our play span here at the Casa de Tutor, and yeah, it's a pretty decent amount of gaming without a lot of commitment, and that's kind of an important reason why you do a one-shot. So at cons, I'm assuming this means ones that I've played and ones that I've run as well. And I'll be honest with you, for the cons that I've been to, I haven't been to nearly as many as frequent con-goers. I go maybe once, maybe twice a year. That's a pretty full year for me. Just life doesn't let me do it all that often. Life, finances, what have you. One of these days I gotta get in with a publishing company who can write off my expenses as a tax write-off or something, or business expenses. I don't know. That would be nice. But I do run occasional con games. I try to offer up a variety of different games other than the one that everybody is playing right now, which would be like 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons at the moment, but it's been a variety for the years that I've been going to conventions. I also don't play very often. When I go to a convention, I love the experience of being around gamers. I love dealing with the people in the dealer's hall and the artists. Not just buying stuff either, talking to these people. Because, yeah, I know on one side they're trying to make money, they're trying to sell their stuff. I got it. But a lot of them have some very interesting stories. And honestly, in their spiel, they do make me sympathetic towards them and try to learn and understand their products better and their game design and stuff. And so, you know, I'm a talker. I do talking. And, but I do occasionally run games, and I do occasionally play games, especially if I see games that I really am interested in. Something that it's like, oh, this would be really cool. I've never played this. Sometimes that works out. Sometimes it doesn't. When I run games that are not the more common games, that is probably the time the most where I get people who just don't come. I sit there and nobody shows up. That sucks, because I always have a game ready. I never go just making it up. I got something to put in front of people. Pre-generated characters, an adventure that's written and crafted tightly for that time block. You know, but sometimes people don't show up. So when I try to run, it came from the Late Show, or let's see, what's another one that's Tales from the Loop. I'm kind of hit or miss on that. At one point I succeeded and had a fantastic group of 6 who came down and we were ready to go. It was great. And then another time I tried to run it at Phoenix Con and nobody showed up for it, which was unfortunate. Because I know the adventure I wanted to run was really fun. And this goes across the board. So some of my most memorable con games, I ran one using GURPS of all things, a game that I hadn't run in a decade. I created Through the Portal of Fire, which was an adventure where the players were in mid-battle, going up against the big bad evil guy, and the villain got knocked through the portal that he was standing in front of. Wasn't his intention, certainly, but he fell through the portal. So the players had to follow. And this is fantasy setting. So, you know, swords, sorceries, powerful magical weapons and stuff, and they were kicking butt. They were awesome. So they go through the portal and they find out two things. Number one, time dilation. Because he went through the portal first, the big bad evil guy was actually a couple of weeks ahead of them through the place they went to. Secondly, the place that they ended up in was a non-magical Southern California. That caught them by surprise. So they're dressed like they're extras from some movie set, which in California didn't raise as many eyebrows as, you know, other places might have. The fur underpants thing is kind of a look. Is that a new fashion? But they found out that yeah, they pursued him, and now they just were powerless folks. They still were really skilled and tough and everything like that, but they didn't know anything that was going on. They were stuck in a fantasy. They're fantasy characters in the modern world setting. I never get tired of that juxtaposition. And they found out that the big bad evil guy got hired on as a janitor in the local school, and he was working on trying to create necromantic runes around the school, and he turned everybody into mindless zombies instead of an army that he was going to use to go back through the portal and conquer everybody, the fools. Also, he'd been corrupted by modern culture, and he fell in love with He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, and because he resonated with Skeletor. So that was amusing. The group wins. They of course beat the big bad evil guy, and it was all within the span of 4 hours. It was a good time, and I had players who knew GURPS very well, and that was a lot of fun. Also, when 4th edition D&D came out, it did, and while it came out, I was running in campaigns I was not using D&D. When I switched my one group to 4th edition D&D, they played it. They did not like it. They really despised the game, and that ended fairly quickly. I appreciated the strength of it at the time, but I also knew that this wasn't a game I wanted to run either. And but I wanted to give it a chance. I wanted to, you know, put it out there so people could see it, because at the cons, nobody was running this game. There were the people who were there from Wizards running it, but let's just say there weren't a lot of people willingly running 4th edition D&D. And so I ran a game of 4th edition D&D. It was called Against the Gnomes, which is a play on Against the Giants, because they were very proud that gnomes were now a monster race. They were not in the player's handbook. They would eventually come into one of the later player's handbooks, of course, but at start, they were monsters. And yeah, because everybody wanted to fight gnomes. So yeah, the gnomes were uprising because they were angry they got left out of the player's handbook, and the players had to then deal with every pun gnome I could come up with. It wasn't great. It was kind of grisly, actually. And the players were just folks you'd find in a bar. They weren't great heroes of destiny or anything, but they had to go and stop the terror of the Gnomonomicon. Yeah, lots of puns, lots of puns. The fun thing about it was, as if you've ever done anything with 4th edition, you know the game is incredibly formulaic. Every character of a certain type is almost exactly like another character of that type. So if you're playing as a striker, for instance, you could be forgiven for closing your eyes to all the fluff text and just breaking down what each of the different powers and abilities are, and moves and whatever you want to call them, and just swapping them between easily, because outside of the fluff and flavor text, they were pretty much identical. Which, you know, from one side, I guess there's balanced game design baked in there somewhere, but doesn't make for the most thrilling of games. And I created the races or the classes that they didn't include in the basic set. I just created new ones, gave them my own names, and followed the formula. And I made a monk and I made a bard before the extra players' handbooks would eventually come out that would have those classes. Made up abilities for all of them. All of the bards' abilities were rock songs. I think it's top level ability was Rock You Like a Hurricane for their daily ability, which created a hurricane. The monks was Monkey Steals the Peach, which means you hit the enemy in an incredibly tender spot, which causes them to be stunned, take massive damage. That one got used against a Gnomepire. Yeah. It was amusing. It was memorable. I wouldn't say it was my favorite, though. The Portal Fire was a good one. Another good one-shot. Back in the day, back when Gen Cons were in Green Bay, I went to a group which was sponsored, or I went to a game that was sponsored by a group called NASCRAG. I think it's the National Association of the Society of Crazed Gamers. Nice folks. Really passionate gamers, which is cool. And they did a game that you had all of these characters. They're baked in pre-gen characters. And you went on a kind of a nice little morality puzzle of sorts. And we played through that adventure. My wife, we weren't married at the time, but my wife and I played through. And when we were done, it was like, oh, this is kind of a nice little adventure. And we were kind of pulled off to the side and said, hey, you guys were really good. We'd love it if you'd come back. There's another sequel game that we're going to run. It's free, and you have to earn a spot, and you guys have a spot. Cool. Because we were role-playing through it. This was back playing 2nd edition D&D, and we were actually role-playing in the middle of a con game. So we had fun, and that was cool. The sequel game wasn't as memorable because the Game Master was slow, so we didn't get to the end of it. And this one was run kind of more like a tournament with points and stuff, and it didn't go as well. But it was still a great group. We had a lot of fun. They were a great crowd, and the conventions were, again, it was amusing. It was fun. I certainly remember it, and it's a very good memory. As far as one-shots that I've run here, though, there's not a whole lot, like I said. But I did just recently run one that bears mentioning. It's for a game called Murders and Acquisitions from Nerdburger Games. And it's like our world, but darker. It's perfectly acceptable in corporate culture to climb the corporate ladder by killing off the people above you, which is kind of entertaining. But at the same time, it's not that far removed from our world that murder is still illegal, so you've got to get away with it. Because if you kill somebody but you go to jail, you didn't do yourself any favors. You just helped the guy who was behind you move up 2 spots. Good job. If you can push the guy ahead of you to murder his boss, that's even better, because then you could really wait till they carpool or something. But yes, it was... I ran a game, and I set it in retail culture instead of corporate culture. So there were all the disaffected, well, one of the people was a manager, but the rest of them were all just, day workers. Because the thought of being unemployed was much, much more terrible than even having a crappy job, they stuck with it, and they were trying to get up into a better position, most of them. And they had to go up against the evil forces of the competition, Mega Big Mart. And they found out through infiltration that while Mega Big Mart looked ridiculous and truly inflated and totally lampooned vision of retail, as told by somebody who's worked retail, fair bit. They found out that they were attempting to create the perfect employee by using pieces from past employees, and the one they made was this just nice guy who just wanted to help everybody and do the best they could. They immediately hated him, and he had to die. They also found out that Mega Big Mart was using retail demonology, so that led to some interesting and tight moments. But it was a great game. We had fun. Most of the heroes won. One of the player characters died, but actually that was kind of prescribed that one of them was going to get fired if everybody came back. So one person didn't, so nobody had to get fired. It was pretty good. All right, so that was my answers. And again, it's a little bit more involved answer, but still, it was a pretty good question. So I hope you enjoyed it. And I am the Dungeon Tutor, and I am here to entertain and uplift and, you know, maybe give you some ideas. And hopefully I did. If I did and you really did like it, though, feel free to like and subscribe to my channel. I do appreciate it if you do that. Make sure that you notify yourself so you know when I make future videos. And, hey, if you know somebody else who likes the idea of one-shots but has no idea how to go about it, feel free to send this video their way. I don't mind chatting about stuff like that, and they might pick up some, you know, breadcrumbs that'll lead them to a great game of their own. But I do hope to see you in future videos because, you know, frankly, I don't just do this for myself. I'm doing it for you, so if you do come to see me again, I hope that between then and now, you, yes, you get a chance to roll some dice, play some games, have some fun. Stay safe out there, my friends. Until next time, farewell.